What I've done tonight is to select some passages from the first Bhumi, which I think are important. But as I went through the first Bhumi and I went through all the comments that I'm going to deal with tonight, I realized if anybody wants to know exactly what do the Buddhist texts tell us about how to live a Buddhist life, I think this is the text. It's not just bodhisattvas, it's the whole gamut of human activity. And I think if you select from all the passages that we find in this sutra, it covers almost everything you could think of in terms of your daily life. So anyway, let me share with you we are told by the text that the Bodhisattva is the son of the Buddha. The Bodhisattva is a community of people with a great resolve. They use great compassion as the foremost aspect of their lives. They focus on wisdom as a predominant condition for living. And all of this is done with skillful means, but it is sustained. They're able to do it by resolute intentions. In many ways, Buddhism is a religion of intent. It is important to understand that it's not just your karmic actions. It's not just what you say, what you do, and what you think so much as you must have a resolute intention behind what you do. What do I think that I'm wanting to do? And this can be very subtle. Sometimes we wish that our intent was of the highest, but if we look carefully at what we think and do, we sometimes find that we have lesser intentions. We are sometimes not using the superior resolute intentions. But in any case, this is how the Bodhisattva basically lives their life, with compassion, wisdom, skillful means, and intention. One of the first phrases I'd like to look at is this. And it tells us that the Dharma realm is very, very large. And it's as extensive as empty space, and so enduring as to, and this is the only time I think I have ever read this, to reach to the very end of future time. In other words, when we come to the issue of time, it confuses me very much. When we look at a picture like this of space, we know that we are looking at things that no longer exist, that the light that is coming from space, which is just now reaching us, is maybe billions of years old, and whatever was the case when the light started may no longer be the case. That's hard for me to put my mind around, but it's true. We are looking always, and we think we're looking at the past. But here the Dasha Bhumika says, not only should we look at the past, but we should do things which will reach to the very end of future time. So we're in the present time. The past fades behind us billions of years of time. But there is future time. In other words, the things which we do today will have implications for the future. This is basically what karma is. Karma is future time. Whatever I do will have its ramifications. And so the text tells us that we need to come to grips with the nature of time itself. We're also told in this Bhumi, the son of the Buddha, the Bodhisattva who dwells on this level of joyfulness, becomes joyful. I'll show you a picture here of one of my favorite smiling Buddha Bodhisattvas. It strikes me very often when I'm in Asia and I have traveled around and I look at the images, how often the images of the Buddha have that smile, particularly in Thailand. But this one in Cambodia is, look at the smile on that face. That's what joyfulness is. It's that smile. And I read that doctors have explored what happens when you smile. And what happens when we smile is that just the act of smiling changes our immune system. So if you want to be healthy, I guess, you better smile a lot. But it's not just grinning at everybody, which would be a little disconcerting. The smile that you see here, for me, is the smile of compassion. It's the smile of fixed mindfulness. There is a type of joyfulness that is not so loud, but it's very firmly fixed. So this first bhumi of joyfulness really needs to be a part of our life. And as I've said before, I always felt that Master Xing Yun took this quite seriously. That it was really important, if it was possible, to make people joyful, to make them happy, to make them feel comfortable, to give them a smile of joyfulness. And I feel that this image of this smiling face always reminds me of that. The next thing that it says is that this Bodhisattva calls to mind the pure paramitas. And not just the six. Everything is 10, so this sutra has made the paramitas 10. And they have added upaya, skillful means, pranidhana, the vow, bala, spiritual power, and jnana, knowledge. These four were added to the list of pure paramitas. And when one looks at them, you can see how very important they are in Mahayana Buddhism. These are the elements of spiritual practice which everyone is asked to follow. Skillful means it is so difficult sometimes to have skillful means. It's very possible to be as a teacher. We teachers know this. You throw up a barrier and the student does not learn or easily get what we're talking about because we haven't put up our skillful means. Skillful means doesn't necessarily mean that that you have a scheme, that you have some plan, that you have some technique which is skillful. I think skillful means implies that the Bodhisattva can, just from the way they are in a state of mindfulness, teach and give information to others easily, freely. And that to me is skillful means. You watch a basketball player or you watch athletes. That skillful means is that they do it, as I've said before, with such apparent ease. One of the great problems with learning to do something and being so skillful is that people think, well, that's not very much. Anybody could do that. It looks so easy. You watch someone playing basketball. In our country, we have a very famous player who can shoot and make three-pointers, meaning a long, long shot. And you can hardly believe he does it. And yet he does it with such ease that you think, well, he's just running down the court and throws the ball. There's what is the skill in it? There's very great skill in ease of doing things. I remember when I was trying to learn to ride a bicycle, I put forth so much effort in holding up the bike. I was determined that it wouldn't turn over, and so I was holding it on, and I was tense. And as a result, I couldn't ride until finally someone came along and said, here, I'm going to hold the bike. Relax. Let the bike carry you. Don't try to carry the bike. And the minute that happened, all of a sudden I had that euphoric, joyful feeling that the bicycle began to move the way I wanted it to. And I almost shouted, I can ride a bike. I can ride a bike. Small things, but very important. Now, pranidhana. Again, I have said before, Buddhism is not a religion of commandments. It does not say, don't do this. you must do that. But what it encourages all of us to do is to make vows, to have resolutions. And those vows, we try not to break. That's where the Buddhists get their vigor in their practice. It's not from someone punishing them in order to get the vigor into their practice. But the practice comes with the vow and the intent to make that vow stick and to stay with it and to not lose that power. And that does lead us to power, spiritual power. It's surprising that you don't find very often power as a part of the religions of the world. The Buddhists using the notion of spiritual powers, that is that our spirit, our intent, our resolve is so strong that we have power. We are powerful. We have created this power by our resolute vows and our focus on keeping those vows. And it's through this that we finally come to jnana. This, of course, is the same word as the Chinese Chan. All of you are part of the Chan tradition. You are part of the jnana, knowledge tradition. We think of Chan as being meditation, but actually it comes from the word meaning knowledge. It's information. We have the knowledge which comes from being able to, with ease, do our practice, but to do it with great resolve, which is powerful, and to then come to the knowledge that gives us. The next, we're told that a bodhisattva serves as a place of refuge for all beings. It's really important, particularly when we're around children. If you are with children, they will run to you and they want to be picked up and they want to be comforted. They want a refuge. And if we can just give that to them, we become a refuge for all beings. So consequently, they said, the Buddha is like a caravan leader. This was one of your assignments. And it really was important that if you were going to go on a long journey, like we see here, a camel caravan going over the Khyber Pass, if you are going to have a huge number of people following you, you better know which way you're going. You better know the territory. You better know the signs of danger. They are depending on you to do what's necessary. Because I'm older, there are times when I'm with other people, they put me in front, and I don't know where we're going. They're taking me somewhere, and I have to remind them, I can't be your caravan leader. I'm not prepared to go to this restaurant, or I'm not prepared to go where we are because I don't know it. You know it. So all of you who are monastics, people are looking to you to be their caravan leaders. They are looking to you as much as possible to show them how in the world they can live their lives and move forward safely with efficiency and get from one place to the other. I've, worked on maritime Buddhism for a long time. And what I've realized from working with maritime Buddhism is how important leadership was. People wanted to have somebody who knew how to move in the ship from one port to another. They wanted to have skilled captains who could keep them on the right track. We all want that. I go to a doctor often, unfortunately, but when I go, I really want that doctor to know what to do, how to treat me. I don't want someone who is not trained. We're looking all the time for trained people. So I think that as monastics, or those of us who are teachers in the Buddhist tradition, we should be careful to be extremely well prepared for whatever we say to people. Don't say things unless we are sure of what we're saying, or feel that we know we can go beyond it. That we need at times to just be a refuge for all beings. And often this comes with age. People want older people sometimes to be a refuge for them, to be supportive, to be there for them. And sometimes we as elders are not prepared to do this. We don't have the wisdom which they are implying that we have. We are not prepared. We have not prepared ourselves to be a refuge, to be a leader, to help people deal with their lives and to take them from one station in life to another as much as possible. And with skill and means, it was the same, I think, when I was trying to be a parent. And my 2-year-old became a 3-year-old. And I was still stuck at trying to treat them like they were 2-year-olds. And it didn't work. You have to be able to move forward and to keep up with the development and where people are. Now, I want to tell you that some of the questions you have asked me are among the hardest I have ever been asked. You have challenged me. And there are times when I'm thinking, if these people get better and better and ask more difficult questions, they're going to leave me behind. And won't that be wonderful? But you understand that none of you have stood still. You have been growing obviously, many of you have been growing in your studies, not just for this class, but you've been growing in your knowledge of Buddhism for years. You have had the practice of trying to pass it on to somebody in a skillful way, with ease and with comfort. And you have to be able to stand resolute, stand firm. There are times when people really need you to be firm. For a while, there was something called tough love. I think this is quite different than what tough love meant. Tough love meant maybe you punish, that you have to punish people. But resolute, to stand firm, to not be just melting away when people want you to be there for them, to not burn out, to be ready to grow with your lay people. You know, your lay people are growing at a rate that's equal to your own. Lay Buddhists today know much more than lay Buddhists knew 50 years ago, I think. In many ways, they have open to them channels and books and programs. So the challenge is for you to continue to be a refuge and to keep up with them. The next is something which is a little bit difficult to get. To receive expressions of reverence from others, your monastics. How many times do people come and bow before you? How many times do they show you some sense of the reverence with which they hold you, the reverence with which they hold a robe? And just seeing somebody in a robe is something that causes people to come out and express their reverence. So how do we deal with this? If we think that because people express their reverence to us, that we're something special, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble. The reverence is what I tried to depict in this handshake. The reverence is the reverence which they show us, I should show back to them, because they also deserve to be revered. Many of them work very hard. They are very generous. They support the Buddhist temples and groups. They sometimes teach. In their daily life, people are constantly probably asking them about Buddhism. So we need to receive the reverence. I think it's good. If you can receive it in the right fashion and not let it become something in which you have arrogance. And I think that it's something which you never demand. You never say you must do this. You must always seek for ways in which you can secure it, but it's done freely on the part of the person who gives it. I think there's nothing more destructive than when people are demanding that they be treated in a certain fashion. I run into this often. The question is, what should you call me? Some people call me Professor Lancaster. Some others say Dr. Lancaster. And I often say, my preference is to be called Lou. That's enough. Just my name. To say it with a feeling of being happy to see me, or being happy to be with me, or showing me signs of being in harmony with one another. It's not what you call me at all. Those names, those titles, I just say forget them. I want to hear in the voice of people what it is that they are giving and receiving from me. So that's why I say, just be sure that you're worthy of giving it to somebody else, doing it in the right way, and of receiving it, receiving the reverence from another person and recognition of the fact that they do like you, they do highly prize what you offer them, and because they do, they show you expressions of reverence. So never discount it. Don't get rid of it. Stand with it and stand firm. The one thing that the text tells us is, and you realize all of these are statements taken from the Dashabhumika first Bhumi. Abandon all flattery and deceptiveness. You know, it's sometimes if people are saying things about me or about others, there is such a difference between praise and flattery. Praise is good if it's honest, if it recognizes what we do and how we do it, and that people appreciate that and they praise. Flattery, on the other hand, is when somehow people assume, oh, you're perfect, you never have any problem. And they feel that they're flattering us, but it's counterfeit. It's deceptive. Flattery is usually saying something which is not really true, but they think that it would make me feel good if they said it. From the Buddhist perspective, it's honesty. So if I'm going to say something about someone, and I honestly can say a really lot of good things about them, that's praise and it is fine. But if I don't have that ability and I still do it, then that is, as you can imagine, I'm saying that is not fine. And then it says to simultaneously turn the Dharma wheel in all places. I think those of you who are monastics in Foguanshan, this is precisely what you are doing. You are simultaneously turning the Dharma wheel in many, many places. And that's what Master Sheng Yun set people out to do. To at the same time turn the Dharma wheel in all places. There's no place where the Dharma can't be taught or dealt with. It may be that people don't want to be religious. They don't want to join a group, but they still, Buddhism says that you don't have to. The big issue is the Dharma. The big issue is the things that we teach. Those things I would like to talk to you about, not in order to convert you necessarily, but just to share with you the Dharma, to turn the Dharma wheel. In my classes at the university, there were many times where students used the class as a kind of life training. They were hearing some things from the Buddhist texts and from the lectures which moved them, puzzled them, challenged them. But it was this Dharma which the Buddhists teach. The Dharma says, whatever is the way things really are, is the Dharma. If you tell it like it really is, that's the Dharma. And if you tell it like it really is, that's true everywhere in the world, from the Antarctic all the way to Siberia. The Dharma wheel can be turned in any place if you are using the expressions which tell people the way things really are. So this Dasha Bhumika tells us to do just what you're doing, to simultaneously turn the wheel of Dharma in all places. And then it says something which I think we need to think very carefully about. Being able to resort to the capacities of his own mind, the Bodhisattva's own mind, to know all the domains, the awesome powers, and the wisdom of all Tathagatas. In other words, what is the capacity of our own mind? What can we do with what we already have? There is so much that our brains can do. There is so much that is in our own mind that we don't use, that we're not dealing with it in its full capacity. And how do you determine the full capacities of your own mind? Hard to see it in yourself. I know as a teacher, it's really hard to show people what they themselves know already. Instead of saying, I'm going to teach you something, what I'd like for you to do is to figure out what you already know. What is it that you already have in your own mind? So here the text tells us to focus on ourselves in a somewhat different way, to figure out what is it that my mind can know. I always thought that I was not poor. I was very poor with math. That was not my good thing. And then one day I discovered Sudoku, numbers. And lo and behold, I found out that actually I could use the capacity of my mind to deal with numbers. And for the first time, I feel as if I'm using that capacity. It was always there, but somehow I never realized it. I never got to experience it. So what is it that we're not experiencing consciously? What are the capacities that we have not yet explored? Some people find that they have a capacity to be able to work with young children. And often, a lot of us, we're not sure that we could ever do that. So how do you explore your powers? So with students, I keep trying to tell them, college is a time when you can try out to see where your wisdom is, to see where your capacities are, to find out what it is that you can do. And the first thing that you must find out is, what are your strong points? And once you find your strong points, stick to them. Resort to the capacities of your mind. And it tells us, you will not abandon even any of those places manifesting within the tip of a hair. In other words, the Buddhists deal with the universes, deals with the heavens above, deals with the billions and billions of Buddhas, deals with things that are in numbers very far beyond us. But at the same time, we ought to be able to deal with what manifests itself in a single small moment, with the metaphor, the tip of the hair. So people throw this away often. They don't realize that when they heard the chanting, for just a moment, something happened to them. And they ignore it. And they go on to other things. But we need to hear the small little things that are happening to us. Some of you know I'm still in the hospital, and while I'm here, I'm in physical therapy. And what the physical therapists are doing is they are discovering muscles that I didn't know I had, little tiny muscles in my back, and they exercise those muscles. And then that night, I am so sore, I can hardly move. I didn't realize I had that muscle. And they're saying to me, you need to awaken these muscles that you have. I have trouble walking. And they are getting me to use my capacity, even whatever small muscle it is. And I have to say, I've never gained strength so rapidly as I am now from really skillful teachers who are teaching me which muscle it is that I'm not using, which capacity of myself is too small for me to pay any attention to. And yet it turns out that that very little thing, that very small muscle, may be the thing which will give me my strength. I believe that this is true in the way in which we deal with the world, that we have to find out what are the very small things in life which are important to us and make our lives complete. They do not involve their minds in miserliness. and jealousy. Jealousy comes in many flavors. It's like Baskin-Robbins ice cream. There's a lot of flavors of jealousy. And sometimes we don't recognize the jealousy. I have to tell you that as a person who taught graduate students, there have been many times when my students have gone beyond me, when their knowledge surpasses my own in many areas. And when that happens, I always have to fight against a little feeling of jealousy. How does the student get there? Oh, they've already gone beyond me. And we have to, as a teacher, you have to prepare yourself. What do you do when the student is better than you are? And can you take it? Not only can you take it, but can you be compassionate and generous toward that student and still help them? They may be very good in some areas, but not in all areas. They are still in need of support and the strength which you can give them. Anybody who reaches a high level of development runs the danger of being isolated and of people being jealous of them. Master Xun Yun, I think, understood this very well. And people would look at him and say, oh, you're just able to raise money. And he once said to me, the least pleasant thing in his life was receiving red envelopes full of donations. What he really was doing was teaching and training people and sharing his insights and trying to lead them forward like a caravan leader. And he was so successful that naturally there were people, I think, who were jealous of him and who tried to make him look lesser, as if he was just money grubbing, when the truth was so far distant from that. He lived such a Spartan life. When I saw the bed he slept on, I was shocked. A cot with just the simplest lifestyle. And he didn't do it because he was showing off. He never showed that to people. It was not something that many people saw. I'm sure that many people felt that he slept in the most luxurious bed, a huge bed with soft pillows and fluffy things all over the place. But he understood. And the jealousy which came at him, I think he felt the only way to deal with it was just keep doing what you think is right. There are times when you are not going to be praised for what you have done. There are times when you're not going to receive the things that you wish you could. And when that time comes, then you become worried. So we are dealing with living our lives and being willing to continue to lead our lives and to develop ourselves even in the face of adversity, even in the face of jealousy. So the Buddhists were constantly exploring the concept of time in history. And this is what we started off with: future time, past time, present time. And the thing which the text tells us is the Bodhisattva has all three times and experiences them at the same moment. Doesn't carefully divide life up into what I did before and what I do now and what I do in the future. All of this is what's happening to me in this moment in history. And that is a really crucial aspect of learning to deal with life. And so he becomes a leader of merchants. The Buddhists have always been able to accept merchants. That's why dealing with the Maritime Silk Road, it's about merchants. And you look at the membership in your temples, how many people there are basically merchants, business people? They may own a shop, they may have a restaurant, they may trade in goods. That's merchants. That's merchants. And merchants, the Buddhist tradition has said, they deserve to be treated equally with everyone else. Because in many cultures, merchants are put down. Merchants are seen to be lower. But why do we think they're lower? And we think, well, they just do it for the money. But it's their occupation. It's their skill in means. It's their ability to know where to take the caravans, their knowledge, their expertise. So you who work with merchants, be a leader of merchants. They need you. Be a leader of them openly, with joyfulness. Rejoice if a merchant is honestly successful. And then the text, the first Bhumi, comes to an end. And what does it tell us? Nothing done and nothing undergone. It doesn't mean that there's just nothing, but it says that the things which we have done in the past and the things which we have changed and shifted, all those have passed. They're gone. All our work and all our wonderful words, it's like myself right tonight. I'm teaching this class. Everything that I've said has gone. Now you record it and you say, well, we'll replay it again. That's fine, but for me, it's done. But what's left? What do I have to show people for my work? Sometimes it's rather difficult because people say, what good you as a teacher? Why should we go to college? Why should we learn? You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't eat it. What is this? But the text tells us here, of course, what I've done is finished. It changes. And what I have to do is not to sit back and think, I'm going to sit for the next week and think, oh, I gave that lecture on Dasha Bhumika last Tuesday night, and I'm going to think about it and think, oh, good for me, I gave that lecture. It's gone. The world has changed since I gave that lecture. The world has changed since I started this lecture. So I can't say that I've undergone and done something which is permanent, lasting, fixed, existing from moment to moment to moment. I have to be willing to say, it's gone, it's done, it's passed on. And I'm ready now to deal with this moment and this moment and this moment